Hold on. It's just stressing me. How's everybody doing today? I don't know why the video is still going. Uh, oh my goodness. That's so weird. Uh, but I don't know if you guys were seeing the same thing I was, but I was like having two videos going at the same time and I only clicked it once. So I don't know why. So I got a little disorientated, but welcome everyone to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and get together as a community and see how everybody's doing. It's always good to see everyone, and I see Alan is here and Robin. Hey, how are you, Robin? Always good to see you. Robin's really been doing some awesome live streaming. I mean, he just right out of the gate just came out and just is killing it. So great job on your live streams, Robin. And he picks a topic and he flushes it out pretty thoroughly, and then he can answer questions like this. I mean, one after another. I can't even talk that fast. So for those of you catching my stream like after it's live, there's a little box or button down at the bottom of the video where you can say speed up 1.5 times because you could probably do that and then maybe it'll be almost at the pace that Robin's videos can go and you can kind of get through my streams a little faster. And good to see Plato and Wayne and Leslie and John Follows. Good afternoon. And yeah, I'm sorry about the audio if it's delayed. Uh, Let me just check one thing and see if I changed anything here. Yeah, I don't see anything different. I don't know why it's delayed, but hopefully it's okay. I know when the stream starts, there's a little bit of a syncing issue and it's kind of disorientating to the viewer. I apologize for that. It has something to do with the streaming software I'm using, but I got kind of grandfathered into a really good deal when they first started. I use Streamlabs for my live streams. But anyhow, hey Roberto and Marco, awesome to see you guys here. Um, so I didn't really have any specific topic to talk about today, but I did want to try to address a few things that stick in my mind, and things that you guys might want to think about too. There's a couple of things. One is, I try to read all of the comments and get to as many as I can. There's a lot of comments that I kind of leave hanging there without an answer for lately. It's been like 2 weeks. It's been kind of sitting there like a question about how to do something or what setting, etc. And it's mainly because I want to get to it. I want to be able to answer this in a video, and it would be too awkward to try to answer it just in a comment as a comment. But I try to answer as many as I can just typing in a response, but some of them require um, some detail or context in a video. It would be much more productive and I think useful to a lot of people. So I apologize if there's questions you guys have asked that I haven't gotten to yet. If it's been more than 2 weeks, you need to comment again, either on this video or any video really, because I see them all. YouTube sorts them by date. So no matter what video you post a comment on, I'll see it. Right. So, but there's always comments that aren't necessarily questions, but they're just commentary, opinions, even some criticisms, which are fine. And then there's the keyboard jockeys that just want to, look for trouble, right? Which, being on social media in general, you have to have kind of thick skin. So if you post on Instagram or Flickr or anywhere on social media, uh, your images and things, be ready. There's going to be some pretty harsh criticisms, but don't let that deter you or hold you back from your own personal creativity, your own vision, and things that you want to share. I mean, if you ask for it, comments and criticisms welcome, that's one thing. But if you're posting images and just sharing your hobby, your life, or whatever it is you want to share with the world, uh, and you receive some harsh criticism on it, uh, or just downright people are just being mean, just don't worry about it. Don't let it stifle your creativity or your desire to share with the world what you want in your life, because that's kind of how the world we live in now, is we share our lives and our photography online, most of us, right? There's a lot of people that don't. They have their own private albums and everything, and that's another thing I wanted to talk about is uh you don't have to. You can just share with your own friends and family private albums and things, and you don't have to put it out there. A lot, some of you send your links to me to your private albums that aren't shared, with the public, but just for me to look at and see what you guys have been up to. But either way, don't let anything hold you back. Um, a lot of times I'll post things that are very neutral, right? Where it's either be an image or a comparison or like I've been sharing images comparing the resolution I'm getting between say XH2 A7 or 5 and my OM1, between just native resolutions and high res shot modes, and I just say this versus this, and I don't put any commentary on it, right? I just show the image, and the impression people get sometimes, or what people think I'm trying to say or do, and I'm not trying to say or do anything other than just show you what I got, right? But people read into what I post in terms of the images that I select and the comparisons that I do, that maybe I have some sort of bias, right? Or I'm trying to uh, put, show another camera system in a bad light and try to make Olympus or OM systems look better. Because, yeah, you can take a photo with any camera, compare it against the same photo of another camera, and if you go through and you cherry pick the images, you can always make one system look better than another. Uh, but that's not my intent. I'm not cherry picking images to uh, highlight one system over another. I'm just showing what I got. And I try to, uh, I have controlled studio testing best I can. I control the lighting and the images that I'm taking. Uh, because that can make a big difference, right? So there's studio shots and they have a purpose where, you try to eliminate as many variables as you can and narrow it down to just what uh, you want to show. And that is how much resolution, in one case, how much resolution am I resolving with this particular lens and camera combination versus another camera and lens combination. And you could be completely, I could eliminate one more variable where, since these are all mirrorless cameras, I can use the same adapted lens to each camera. So I might pick like my Nikon 50 millimeter lens and adapt it. But then, because they're all different size sensors, APS-C, full frame, crop, the uh, the field of view is different, and I'd have to change distances. And when you start changing distance, that changes the optics of the lens, because you're focusing, right? You have to refocus at different distances, and that that could affect the how much that lens is resolving onto the sensor. So the way I do my testing, if you guys have been looking at those, is I try to select the very best lens that I have for that system in a similar focal length. So 25 millimeter on micro four thirds, 33 on APS-C, and 50 or 55 in some cases on the full frame. And for me, the 50 millimeter focal length or equivalent, or 25 or 33, depending on your crop factor, uh, I always try to buy the top tier glass for that specific focal length that I can afford, right? Or field of view, I should say. And that's how I ended up with these comparisons. And as it turns out, the way I'm processing my images, at native resolutions, it's pretty clear. Things scale up, 20 megapixels looks like 20, 33 or what is it, 40 looks like 40, and 60 looks like 60. There's a little better each time. But where there's a big difference is when I started doing the high res shot mode, right? Because now all three of the cameras I own, they offer that. Uh, OM systems, right? Handheld high res shot or tripod high res shot. Sony has their software to combine images, and then uh, Fuji has similar workflow where you have to export the images into the software, then it combines it on your computer, but not in camera. And from what I've been able to accomplish so far, and it's still early, these other camera systems with the high res shot mode now are relatively new to me, the processing and the workflow and all of that. But what I've been able to do so far, clearly OM Systems has the cleanest, easiest, best results from a 20 megapixel sensor. Certainly, uh, the the 80 megapixel high res shot mode in the Olympus versus, say, the native 60 megapixel sensor on the Sony's coming out better, a little bit sharper, overall, and that's to be expected. Native resolution is always going to trump sort of this interpolated type resolution. Uh, but it's amazing what you can do with high res shot mode in the Olympus cameras with such ease. And as I've talked about before, over and over again, when you display these online, whether it's Instagram or Flickr in my case, it's very difficult to see any difference between a 20 megapixel sensor and a 60 megapixel sensor. The only time you really see it is when you're post-processing and editing on your own computer, on your 4K monitor or 1080p monitor, and pixel peeping, etc. That's when you can see the difference, and you get a little more flexibility with more resolution, clearly. But, if you frame your shots properly, expose them appropriately, you can get fantastic image quality out of any camera system. Uh, any top tier camera system, right? With good glass and all of that. So take heart that whatever camera system you have, you know, and I'm talking about micro four thirds, APS-C, or full frame, you're going to be able to get great results. At least 80% of the photography and getting good quality, and I'm not talking about photography in terms of composition and, you know, telling a story. All I'm talking about just image quality, IQ. You're going to get great results with any system, okay? And particularly if you're going to display online. Now, there can be technical requirements of your customers if you're doing this professionally, and there's technical requirements uh, that you need to be able to deliver certain types of resolution, depending on the output, right, or purpose of the image. So, for example, if you're doing art reproduction, you may need a very, very fine detail, and then to print these extremely large, there could be all multitude of reasons to have a high resolution sensor natively. right? Versus, say, doing it through uh, OM systems high res shout mode. But uh, that's a very small percentage of people, even professionally, that do that, right? Or need to do that. Professional photography is a whole different thing. Professionals that do it as a business, these things are, cameras just become gear, or tools, so to speak. They're not like, it's not their hobby, right? And they're not going to upgrade their camera systems if they don't have to because it's an expense that eats into their profit margins and all of that stuff. And I don't want to get into that, because for me and my channel, and what I think most of my viewers want to see is how to use their cameras, right? So that they can get the best results. And I do my best to, for people particularly for people getting started in photography, to not skip steps or miss anything, but to go into detail and explain everything best I can. Uh, so that they can use their cameras to get the results that they want to get. And hopefully I've been able to do that over the years. And you guys, people that connect with the way I teach and uh, present things, we have a very, very good rapport. And then there's people that just are bored to tears, right? They can't sit through a 30-minute video. They just want like a little 1 or 2 minute bite of, what's the setting for this, right? And I get that. And that's just not something I can do because it would just, because of the audience that I've kind of cultivated over the years, they don't want that. They want the detail, right? And if I just put out a little 2-minute video on how to push this button here to do this, uh, I'll get more questions than I will new viewers, right? Because there's a lot of channels out there that do these. Let me give you 5 tips on how to do this. Let me give you the 5 best settings on how to do this. There's so many videos like that, and I have a few like that, but for the most part, mine are long form, step by step type stuff, right? Uh, but my point is that my audience and what I want to share, uh, I don't let criticisms or mean comments or anything stifle what I want to do with my photography. And you shouldn't either, right? Just do whatever you want to do. Enjoy your photos and going out there because there's a lot of videos out there talking about the journey, right? One came up this morning. I forget the name of the guy. My memory's so bad. Uh, Thomas Heaton did one a couple of weeks ago about, he wants to just tell stories. He doesn't really talk about gear and all of that. And that to me is what 90% of my photography is, right? Is just going out and enjoying the journey and sharing and just having fun, right? So everything that I post on Instagram, for example, don't take it too seriously. I put settings and everything there. But it's mainly just to share what I've been doing, what I've been up to. I went out with a walk with Ellie, and I take pictures of her. When I'm out on walks with her, or I'll do field trips with friends or the photo club. Like I went to Bombay Hook Park yesterday, and that was pretty awesome. And it was such a it's always interesting to hear other people's perspective on a particular scene because we're going to the same place in the same car. We went to Bombay Hook. And my friend, she just loved the fog. She loved it. And she loved the clouds in the sky. And then next thing I know, she's looking at the grass and says, man, the grass is awesome. And I'm like, wow, I can't stand the fog because I'm trying to take pictures of these snow geese and the fog is blocking all the light and making all the images soft. It's like, I didn't come here to take pictures of fog, right? But she's like having the time of her life, right? And I'm like, this is awesome. So we all go out and we just, like I said, it's about the journey and enjoying photography. Uh, and I don't have any agenda to make one system look better than another. You know, they're all great cameras, and I enjoy all of them. Well, not enjoying the Sony so much, but I just got it, so it's going to take me a little time to kind of get used to it. But uh, you know, when I went out last night with David, I saw he had his OM1, and I brought the Sony because I have to review this lens later, so I'm shooting as much as I can with this one lens, uh, so I can make the review on it. But you know, it's just amazing how much you can do with an OM system camera versus, say, the Sony that I was using. Case in point, you know, live bulb, because we were doing fireworks, we were doing light trails and things like that. And I could do the same thing on the Sony with long exposures and things, but it's so much easier and more intuitive when you have live bulb and live comp, right? Uh, and then he was doing handheld live comp with the OM1, which I knew you could do that, I guess, but I never used it. But now I might start doing that. And, you know, yeah, everything is not perfect in OM system world, right? Some things just don't work as well or not as compatible as they should be. But for the most part, aside from, you know, some frustrations time to time, I don't know any other camera system. You can go out and just about do anything you want with it. You know, focus stacking, live comp, high res shot mode, compact lenses, you know, and system and all of that stuff. And that's why it's been my camera system of choice because I'm not hung up on getting every single pixel out of a camera, you know, like the Sony A7 or 5, having a 60 megapixel or squeezing out every bit of light in dynamic range or every single color, you know, in a 14-bit or 16-bit raw image. Uh, you can get obsessed with these technicalities, and when you're spending your hard-earned money, I can appreciate why you want to make sure that you're getting the very, very best, right? And hands down, no question, I think the Sony is just, and this is why it's so popular, is they do everything. That camera does everything. There's so many things in that camera that uh, I haven't even that I'll never use. Let me put it that way. You know, there's some kind of uh, FTP and you know, some Wi-Fi things in there. um, and yeah, I can pixel peep to my heart's content on that and see every little fine detail if I want to. But it's, you know, it doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, it's I'm not doing, you know, doing this for the technical aspects or the gear of, you know, the gear that we use in our photography. I'm doing it because I just enjoy photography, and sometimes I want to pixel peep. You know, sometimes I like to see that, you know, shallower depth of field that I can get with that particular focal length. But uh anyhow, you know, I I just want everyone to enjoy photography regardless of the gear that you have, and don't misunderstand what I'm trying to do on my channel when I have all these different cameras, you know, like this thing. Um you know, what I like about this camera so far is this lens, this 55 millimeter size. Oh my God, this thing is amazing. Um, and I'm gonna enjoy shooting with this combination um, in, you know, in the near future, right? A lot because it just it just I can't express how happy I am with this particular lens, and it just works well with this camera. Uh, and I'm not gonna, you know, and I don't need to use anyway. But it's I get equal joy out of this 25 millimeter Leica f1.4. My God, the images I get out of this lens if I just did a blind test side by side, a lot of images, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But in the areas that I know this lens shines, you know, like flaring and bokeh, the creaminess of it. When I do those kinds of images, if you do a side by side, I would definitely be able to tell the difference, right? And that's what I mean by people show these images side by side in blind tests, and then everybody's like, "Yeah, I can't tell the difference." Even people with a very trained eye might not be able to tell the difference between camera A, camera B, lens B, etc. But when you get to know your gear and the I can't pronounce that word, but the differences between your gear and how they, what combination gives you the kind of results that you want, and you focus and use those particular things on that camera and system, there's nothing like it. I just get so much satisfaction out of this combination, this Zeiss with the Sony, this this Leica with the Olympus camera, um, even my Pen F with the original Pen F film camera lens. This is a 38 millimeter. This gives me that very vintage, swirly, bubbly bokeh on it. So if that's what I want when I take a picture, this is the combination I'm going to go with. And then I just dial in, one of the black and whites and on the dial. And I'm so happy when I take pictures like this, right? Uh, and I wish now this is what kind of prompted this whole uh sort of whatever I've been talking about the last 10 minutes is I'm struggling to find a particular niche or certain joy out of this Fujifilm camera system. I really like the 55 to 200, um, but I have a 33 RLM f1.4. I got a 23 1.4. I'm struggling a little bit to find that magic combination for me, right? Where when I take this camera out, I know I'm going to be able to do something with this that I can't do with any other camera, right? There's things that I can do with this 25 Leica that I can't do with any other camera, right? Same thing with this 55 millimeter Zeiss. Oh my God, I just haven't found that magic sauce or that magic combination for me and what I enjoy or the images that I'm really going to enjoy out of this camera combination. It doesn't mean I don't like this camera or the lenses. They're certainly fabulous, right? They're great. I mean, I love this camera in so many ways. Just the little things, and I've mentioned this in my first impressions. This top plate LCD, just being able to look at the camera and know I got two memory card slots and a full battery without turning the camera on is just that by itself is worth the price of admission for me. Um, and I love the doors. This sticks on me. I like how I can just open this and just close it. It's kind of a spring-loaded switch. I mean, I could go on and on about the design of this camera. They did so many things right that make me really enjoy handling the camera and working with it. But in terms of images, this is where I'm struggling still. I'm still not finding that magic combination, whether it's in the colors, in the lens and body combination, or what have you. I'm having a little bit of trouble finding that magic for me in this system. And I received a comment this week about that I'm trying to do a hit piece on Fuji and make Olympus look better than it is over the. I'm not really. I'm not. But it'll come in time. Eventually, something's gonna click for me with this camera. It's gonna click, and I'm gonna say, "Oh my God, this is what works best for me." Right? This is the combination. Whether it's in the Fujifilm recipes that I'm starting to get into now, or if it's going to be a lens and camera combination, but I just haven't found it yet. Uh, the closest that I've come to is the Sigma 56 millimeter f1.4 on this camera. I'm gonna have to shoot more with that lens. I haven't gotten with any other camera in that focal length, right? Which would be what, maybe about 80 millimeters on the Micro Four Thirds. It would be well, anyway. uh, so I don't want anyone to think that I have any bias, right, so to speak. I am a fan of the Olympus system and the OM system because of everything that it can do for me, right, with the size, weight, etc. But I I think it's a great camera. But okay, so let me catch up on the questions here, and because it looks like while I was talking, I could see a few questions coming in. So I'm going to go back up here. Wow, so many here. That's awesome. See, Lauren's here. Good to see you. Adam Favre. Okay. Oh, Anthony asks, what do I use for stitching software? And it is very RAM intensive if one is stitching up to 6 photographs. I just use Photoshop uh, for stitching, right? They have the click auto so you do auto align, and then you do I forget what it's called, but first you have to align everything, and then you do the stitching, whether it's a pano or focus stacking. And I know on a Windows machine you really should have about 16 gig of RAM to kind of have things go at a minimum pace that's not unreasonable. But the more the better when it comes to computers. But that's what I use. Now I know there's free software called Hugin, Hugin. I installed it last week, but I haven't used it yet because I want to try to give people an alternative to Photoshop. But I guarantee if you search YouTube right now for Hugin, Hugin or Huggin, there's probably a dozen tutorials. I know I'm going to be looking for it later myself. But apparently that's pretty well respected for doing panoramic type stitching. And then a really good stacking software for focus stacking, and I know you didn't ask this, but it's kind of related, is Picolay, Picolay. That's really good for focus stacking, and it's free. So those are two free alternatives. Paid alternatives, there's so many. There's PT GUI, there's Panorama Pro. Panorama Pro is really good, and it's not that expensive, it's like 80 bucks. But since Photoshop does it and I'm paying for it, I might as well use that. I've explored Panorama Pro for my professional work for certain things, for 360 type work, but it just hasn't come up. Okay. And Brendan's here, Jeanette Newman, good to see you. Uh, And then she said, I saw the comment on the HDR picture. Yeah, so I posted some old school HDR images. Uh, from this, Jeanette's talking about the HDR pictures I did on Instagram. So let me see if I can show. Uh-oh. Of course, my loop deck's not connected, so I can't switch screens. All right, so I'm not going to be able to show it today. I don't know why that's not connected. But go to my Instagram or Flickr. Wait, there's a share screen button on the webcam software. Let me try that. Let me see if that'll work. Share. How come it doesn't? All right, let's try that. Oh, okay. Yeah, that works. So these, oops. So this is my Flickr page, right? And I usually post more images on my Flickr than my Instagram, but yeah. So here, like here's an HDR image, right? This old school HDR, this used to be popular for a while. And what happened is, uh, I um, I took out the Sony camera and it was in bracketing mode. Um, and I didn't realize it was in bracketing mode, and I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. I was just having a brain fart, how to get out of bracketing mode. So I came home with all of these bracketed images. So I said, "Oh hell, I might as well." And I don't use Nick Collection that much, but I have it, right? I have an older version. I said, let me mess around with the HDR stuff. And I saw this and I was like, oh wow, okay. I remember when this used to be popular. So I just posted the images and there was a little bit of blowback on it. A lot of people just hated it. They're like, oh my God, that's just what are you doing, right? And then some people they loved it. Um, and I get it. It's kind of it's very very old school. It's not really popular anymore. But I just like I said, don't take what I do too seriously. I just threw it out there because it was just kind of a more of an accident on my part of just I came home with all these bracketed shots and I was like, all right, let me just since I have all these, let me mess around and see different things. So I said, let me do some HDR. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, look at these other presets. Oh, I remember this. So, anyhow, one of the things I said in the Instagram comment was uh, that, photography in the software, because the most common comment I got was about how people are spending so much time in software with these filters and presets and just, messing with the raw image to the point where the original image is almost unrecognizable, right? And that is not photography, right? Photography is more about getting it right in camera. There's more purist type people out there that think or believe, I should say, that photography is about basically getting it right in camera and composition, telling a story, the whole thing, right? And that this kind of stuff, this HDR stuff, is just crap, right? It's not photography. It's crap. And my response was basically that, I cringe too sometimes when I see images like that. And if any of my students or anybody of my friends start doing things like this, I'm like, oh my God, have fun with this if you want. But, if you really want to get good at photography, you need to kind of get the basics down of exposure and lighting and composition and all of that. I mean, do whatever you want with this stuff for fun. It's fine. But I don't want you to rely on that to try to make your images look, you know, I don't know. I'm sort of being a hypocrite now, right? Because I just talked for a half an hour about how don't let anybody stifle your creativity. But yeah, I cringe a little bit personally, when I see those things. Because I think I have the original image. I did edit. Let me pull that up real quick. Um, so let me see. Here's here's the same image, but I just did normal editing to it, right? Pull the highlights and push the shadows a little bit, and then a little bit of sharpening. It's not all that different, really, compared to the HDR one, because it was a very high dynamic range scene, and that was a single image. That wasn't an HDR. Here's the HDR, where it's just kind of very gritty. Uh, But now I forgot what I was going to say. But you know, I feel like a lot of these presets and filters and everything, I like to explore them uh, for creative purposes. But you need to remember that a lot of these filters and presets have their roots in real photography, right? They're not just, they're gimmicky in some cases, but they're not always just gimmicks. If you really look at the roots of how this filter came to be, it has roots in real photography. So the example I gave was like light leaks. You know, people are buying software to put light leaks in their photos, right? And I like to use them time to time, right? It kind of gives that nostalgic look. But back in the day, man, if you had a light leak in your photo, that was a big no-no. You just cannot have light leaks in your photography back in the day when we were shooting film. And nowadays people are putting the light leaks in, right? But that filter, light leak filter, has roots in real photography because these things used to happen. And now we use them for creative purposes instead of trying to correct them or avoid them. We're embracing it, right? Uh, and that's so think about that. Use these filters and presets like everyone says as a starting point for the creative process. Uh, I think Luminar Neo is sort of geared around that. That workflow is geared around starting with a preset. I mean, you can skip that, right? But when you open up Luminar Neo, at least when I was trying it out, you're hit with like a bunch of presets and styles and things, and I'm like, it just my brain just exploded. I just couldn't deal with that. So I've never really talked about Neo or did reviews on it or anything like that because it just wouldn't be fair to the developer for me to do it because it doesn't work for me. But again, it doesn't mean anything's wrong with it. It's just a different workflow and some people really love it. Uh, but photography, just like in language, there's an etymology, I think that's the word. There's a root to the meaning of different things or the origins of certain types of ideas and filters, and in the creative process there's very little that's original anymore. Broadly speaking, there's a lot of original creative artists out there. I don't want to take anything away from that, but for me, I mean, anytime I come up with something that I think is really cool, it's been done. you know I bring nothing new to the table personally when it comes to the creative process, but it's okay. Like I said, I don't take it too seriously. I'm just having fun. Um, okay, anyway, so I appreciate you reading that comment, Jeanette, and your feedback on that. Um, excuse me. And John Truman is here. George Moran, good to see you guys. And Office Farva. Deep dives, and it has me thinking of going back from full frame. Interesting. I mean, like I said, if you have a system now, just use it. If you think Micro Four Thirds will give you some uh, enjoyment out of photography, go for it. That's why I have this whole rack of cameras behind me. Each one gives me some sort of like a photographer, but sometimes we just share things honestly can. There are no double meanings, and some people just want to see things negatively. Yeah, I get that, and it's okay. I mean, sometimes I get feedback that I didn't realize, right, that I was wrong or doing something wrong. So when I read the comments, even though they're sort of mean, I'm like, I see their point though. I'm like, I need to be careful because I don't want to be offensive. I don't want to promote the wrong ideas or give the wrong impression. So it's okay. So I read everything. Um, and anyway, Robin knows what I'm talking about, and I'm sure many of you do if you do anything on social media. Um, And that's okay, Robert. I don't know what text you sent earlier. Oh, here we go. I used to watch you from Glow. I can't pronounce that, which you struggle to pronounce. Again, I struggle to pronounce it. Uh, love pronunciation. In the UK, we have recently immigrated to Killicanty in Ireland. One of these days I got to go to Europe and just travel because you can go a couple hours in any direction and you're in a different country out there, right? And everywhere is beautiful. And where I live now, you go a couple hours, sometimes, that's just to get groceries because traffic is just so crazy. But on a good day, you can go a couple hours to some nice locations, but they're not all that different than what's right around you, what's right around me locally. Um, you know, so, but it seems like Europe, it just feels like, like Thomas Heaton goes or whoever, those guys out there, there's a bunch of landscape YouTube channels in the UK, right? Because you can just drive a couple hours and you're in a different country in a whole different location. And it's amazing. Castles, waterfalls, seascapes, woodland. It's like crazy. You can do everything out there. Uh, we have kind of all of that in my local area, but at a much smaller scale. And there's people, there's so much land here. Some people would have to fly to get to a location to see a seascape. It's just not possible. Okay, so Sequator on a PC, does the software keep the original? I don't know what Sequator is. Sorry, Marsh, I'm not familiar with that one. Um, so we really appreciate what you do. Oh, hey, it's Robin. I myself go through long form videos on camera deep dives and loving what you have contributed. Don't let the naysay. Oh, yeah, I'm way past letting things get me down. I try to consume the comments and feedback and criticisms, uh, and use them constructively, right? Whether it's for my own personal growth or for the benefit of people that might be watching my channel. And Roger has a question here. Says if I'm shooting at high ISO and a fast shutter speed above 1/250th of a second and not shooting in multiple shot mode, okay, well, does it make sense to put noise reduction blank frame on? If you're going to use, well, I need the context of why you're doing that, but if you're going to process your raw images, the noise reduction doesn't matter. Yeah. Uh, well, okay, I'm confusing noise reduction with noise filter. Noise reduction is the blank frame process where if you take a 1 or 2 second frame exposure, it's going to take an additional, say, 1 or 2 second frame with the shutter closed to subtract noise from the original frame. So it's a two-step process, and it only happens when you take long exposures, like 2 seconds or longer, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever it is. Um, it's going to take a second frame at an equal length of time. And rule of thumb, I just say leave it off. But if you leave it on and you're shooting at 1/250th of a second, it's not going to make any difference because it only comes on at, like, I think at 1 or 2 seconds. I don't know what the threshold is, but it's not going to come on and make any difference in continuous shooting. So it doesn't make sense to turn it on if it's turned off. And I recommend, for the most part, people leave it turned off. There are some exceptions to that, which, the nuances of that are a little bit too long for doing in a live stream. But uh, I have noticed that in long exposure photography on everything but the OM1, if you're just doing 10 or 15-second exposures, you're going to get noise from the sensor. And I'm not talking about normal chroma and luminance noise. I'm talking about hotspots and speckles and dead pixels. You're going to get a lot, even from a 10-second exposure. And using noise reduction turned on, where it does the blank frame, makes a huge difference in the quality of that image. So if you're doing 10-second exposures, I would say turn it on, but this is not what Roger's asking. I would just leave it off, but it doesn't matter if it's on or off at 1/250th of a second. And then if you're doing video on a tripod, is there a processing and image benefit to turning off the IS? Um, I I'm not the best person to ask for this. I don't think there's any difference in image quality, so to speak, like in a frame, frame to frame to frame. But some image stabilization can create, on a wide angle lens, some warping effects. And if you're doing any kind of panning, sometimes you'll get a nice smooth pan and then it'll jump, right? Because image stabilization is trying to compensate for that panning. So I would definitely turn off image stabilization if your video is going to be all about panning, either vertically or horizontally, or there's a lot of motion. Now, if you're just doing a talking headshot, uh, and not moving the camera much, it's not going to make any difference if IBIS is on or off. But definitely, if you're doing any kind of panning, uh, yeah, turn it off because you're going to get that jerky motion. Uh, if that's going to be important in the um, final output. So if you're tracking like a horse running or a dog running uh, on a tripod, I'm holding it like I'm doing handheld. I would turn IBIS off uh, for video, for if you're going to be doing panning. Otherwise, you can just leave it on. It won't make any difference, and it doesn't affect image quality at all. There's a slight crop with digital image stabilization, but it's pretty minor on Olympus cameras. But if you're not using Olympus, you want to check what the crop is and see how it affects your framing overall if you're going to use digital image stabilization. But for Olympus, it's not that much difference, like 10%, I think. And not enjoying the Sony so much. Yeah, it's still early. It does everything. Camera does everything. I get it. I get it why people love it. They don't, if you want a very advanced piece of technology, Sony is it. It'll do everything, but if if you want to enjoy photography, it doesn't matter what camera system you get. You can enjoy photography regardless of the gear. And thoughts on Sony, thinking of buying one. Uh I guess it would depend on why you want to get one. You know, for me, it was just gas for the most part, partially because I'm getting lenses from manufacturers to review and they come in Sony mount. Well, they come in different mounts, but they were all full frame lenses. And I'm like, all right, let me get a full frame mirrorless camera because I got rid of my Panasonic L mounts, my S5 and my S1R, which I kind of regret the S1R a little bit, but uh so I bought a full frame camera just for that reason. And plus, I had this bug up my butt about getting maximum resolution, 60 megapixels. So that was part of it, right? And I was looking at used Sony A7R4. So if you want to buy a Sony just for the resolution, I think a used A7R4 would be perfect because it's about half the price of what I paid for this thing. Uh, but yeah, the A7 III, A7 IV, these are all really nice cameras with respect to the technology and the kind, but the colors are weird. I'm struggling. Maybe maybe it's just me right now, right? Maybe it's just, but I'm not liking the colors that I'm getting out of the Sony a whole lot. It's very subtle, and I can change it in post. It's no big deal. But a lot of times with the Olympus, you know, I'm just used to using those colors for all these years, and I'm used to seeing things a certain way. So when I see something a little bit different, like out of the Fuji or out of the Sony, I'm like, what is that? Why is it? Why? Right? I don't like it. But uh, and I have to correct for it and get it back to the way I like to see things. But it's not that it's good or bad. It's just different than what I'm used to and how I'm used to seeing the world, right? Through my OM system camera. It's very different. Um, like the Fuji looks a little pastelly to me. The reds are kind of pinkish. It's just a little bit off. I mean, I'm talking about the raw images, not the JPEGs. The Sony is kind of bluish or cold a little bit. So I have to push the white balance a little. Just little things that don't matter really in the end if you're processing. But uh, I and it's heavy. Oh my God, it's so heavy, this camera. Ah, you know, I'm used to my Pen F, which is like I think I showed last week. It's like 5 or 600 grams with the lens and the grip, right? The Sony with the lens and the base plate that I have, similar to what I had on the Pen F, is double the weight. So I don't like that part. Anyway, I'm just nitpicking. It's a nice camera, but I don't know. And Adam says, you feel a specific niche, you enjoy your chats and your instruction on your long form. You continue to be a person I recommend. Oh, thank you. And Adam, I think, runs a Facebook group for Micro Four Thirds. I think it's called, Adam, I can't remember because I don't hit Facebook too often. But just type in the comment what the name of your group is. I think it's Olympus Educational something. I can't remember. I'm so sorry. It's a great community though. The few times I've gone in there and participated, the community, like most Micro Four Thirds communities are, or all of them that I've been to have been very welcoming and very helpful. Yeah, Brendan has a Pen F and it's the best around. I think so. I love black and white on the Pen F. Uh, and you're welcome, Alan. I try. He says you've owned an EM1 Mark III and have just acquired a Pen F as a put in my pocket camera and find both very capable. Yeah, they're great. They're great. The Pen F doesn't focus as well as the EM1 Mark III, right? But Pen F is not made for sports action, all that. It's a point and shoot camera, right? Less is more. That's right, Roberto. Less is more. I'm sticking with Ollie. Yeah. And then Roger, oh, thank you, Roger. Support Robin today. Give up one of your local coffee buys and send. I appreciate that. Jimmy and Peter and the usual suspects. Everybody on the that shoot Micro Four Thirds and the people that I've had a guest on my channel are doing a great job. And people that I haven't had on my channel yet, like Thomas Isel and um, Don Gummin, I can't remember. It's not their fault. My memory's bad. But they're such a great community. And like I said, if you watch any of their videos, even if you don't like the video itself or what they have to say, if they're talking about Micro Four Thirds, click the like button just for the fact that they're talking about Micro Four Thirds. Like I said, I want to make people more aware of the format, Micro Four Thirds, and try to appreciate, what it has to offer. I mean, I get it. The form factor is not as competitive or as compelling as it used to be when it was competing against mirrored cameras. As soon as everybody went not full frame, but went mirrorless, and started making their cameras smaller and cheaper, that gap is narrowed, you know, but it still, in my opinion, has a very competitive advantage in terms of overall size and weight of the system and features and capabilities uh, in its own way. And I found Micro Four Thirds still to be my system of choice, personally and professionally, but uh, very much so personally. I enjoy my Pen F, uh, my EM5 Mark II. Those are probably my two favorite cameras to go out and shoot with, by far. Now, I really enjoy shooting the Fuji X-H2, um, but I'm not finding that magic from the images yet. But I do enjoy shooting with it. I really like this combination. Uh, for just in terms of shooting, I like the 55 to 200 on this Fujifilm X-H2. This is a very well balanced system, a great focal range. Um, the image quality is great. I mean, I have no complaints about the image quality, other than what other people have already talked about. It's a little soft at 200 millimeters. It's not perfectly sharp, but for the most part, I get a lot of pleasure out of using this combination. But I really haven't broken the system in yet, and I haven't found that magic yet, right? But it's gonna come. I just have to take it out more. I need to do a vlog, or just maybe not put the pressure of doing a vlog on myself, but just go out and try and enjoy this camera, um, and the lenses that I got for it, because I have a bunch of lenses for it now. Um, anyhow, let's see. Oh, cool. So Natura is trying out a 24 millimeter Sirui uh anamorphic lens. That's something I never got into, is anamorphic lenses. Mainly because nobody sends me one. I'm not buying one because I don't do video, but if a manufacturer wants to send me one to review, then I might try it. And you're using the old G9. That's still on my short list of cameras to get. It's gonna go on my shelf back here one day, as cameras that I pick up once in a while, just because of what it is. The G9 is such a fabulous camera, and I think a benchmark in the Micro Four Thirds history for other cameras. It's certainly had so many things on it, and they continue to update the firmware in it so that it became an extremely capable camera, to the point that they maximized it completely. You know, like, you couldn't possibly do any more with a G9 in terms of firmware and capability than it is right now with the latest firmware. Um, and then Serge says, on my Sony, I only use the 24 to 105 f4. It's very, yeah, I heard good things about that lens. I'm more of a prime shooter. I'm not crazy about zooms. I do like this zoom on the Fuji, but that's the only zoom I own for the Fuji system. Everything else is primes. Um, and I don't own too many zooms for across the board. I'm not really a zoom guy. I like the primes. And Rob does a nice job remaining balanced with the system's likes and dislikes. There's some that do this very poorly and have make why I left videos. Oh yeah, you can't figure out why fans think spy. Yeah, I don't get this. Every time I see these videos where they say why I left, or why I switched, or I'm switching back, or I'm switching away from, there's so many videos like that, and they make the same things year after year after year, very across the channels. And uh what I found, that they tend to be usually younger viewers, right, or younger creators. You know, they're in their you know, 20s, maybe early 30s. They're relatively young, and I get it. I remember when I was young, like in that age, from teenager up to about my 30s, man, I had to have the latest and greatest all the time. You know, if this thing was, because when I was at that age, computers were kind of growing. If if there was a computer that came out that was 1 megahertz faster than the one I had to get it, you know? And I would switch computer systems and chips and all of that, you know? Uh, didn't matter. And even when I was a kid, I was like, I had a walkie-talkie, 30 milliwatt, and then I saw at Radio Shack they had 100 milliwatt. I had to have it, man. I can't be going around no 30 milliwatt walkie-talkie when I could have 100 watt, you know? So, fast forward to today, nothing's really changed. I found mostly it's the younger creators in their 20s and 30s that, they have this uh they gotta have the latest and greatest, or, if there's any slight deficiency in what camera they have, it drives them nuts, and they have to solve that problem. Even though it's not a problem they had, they need to solve it, right? So they're solving problems they don't really have by getting new gear. Um, and I tell you, it's that's one of the benefits or things of getting older is you have a very different perspective on life, and you can relate to a broader range of people. Because when you're young, you can't relate to old people, you don't get it. But old people, you can relate with younger people because you've been there, and you can kind of appreciate why they do the things that they do, and you don't give them a hard time about it, you let them explore their humanity and their life, right? And grow um, as human beings. Uh, but when you're young, man, you don't have any patience for people like me. That's why my audience is about, I think, 80% age 55 and up, right? Like people my age and older, because you can kind of relate to what I'm doing, and I go at a pace. Yeah. Anyway, but young people, man, yeah, when I was young, I didn't understand my dad or my mom, why would you sit there for an extra 5 seconds if you can get a computer that can do it faster? I just didn't understand. Anyway, uh, and then Rob says, any chance I can get your opinion on the XH2 versus the OM1 for landscape photos? Looking to go lighter for my. It's too early for me to give a strong opinion on it either way. Uh, My challenge right now is finding a post-processing workflow where I can get a consistent image quality. I certainly could use Capture One all the time, and I'll get very consistent results. But in Photolab 7, I'm getting better results sometimes and worse results sometimes than I can get in Capture One. So I'm not getting that. Let me just show you one. Let me show you an image side by side here. Uh, Oh my God. These are all test shots for somebody asked me to post a bunch of stuff. Um, yeah, it's one of these. Okay, right in this area, page 2 or 3 on my Flickr page, there's a mix of Olympus and Fujifilm images. Like this is my OM1. And then I have a similar image. This is a Fujifilm XH2 with the 23 millimeter. Uh, Virtually identical in terms of color but there is a certain magic to this image that I didn't get in this image with the Olympus. Uh, certainly there's lens flare and stuff, which is something my new lens doesn't do anymore on my Leica 25 millimeter, but uh, Okay, so now that I've looked at this, I'm just refreshing my memory a little bit. The last time I did landscapes, um, but I am finding the post processing still a little bit of a challenge. Too early for me to say. Ultimately, um, there's no reason to get a Fujifilm over Olympus for landscape photos. The way it stands now, I don't see any significant advantage or disadvantage between either system. Uh, so honestly, I would say if you don't own these two cameras yet, the XH2 or the OM1, um, try to look beyond what you're going to be doing with the camera besides landscapes, right? So yeah, there's too many variables here for me to kind of give you a good opinion. I will tell you that the XH2 is substantially a heavier and bulkier system than the OM1 system. If that's one of the key components of your decision is size and weight, it's definitely OM1 is going to be a smaller, lighter system. You take the OM1 with the 25 millimeter f1.4 Leica, that's a pretty compact and very comfortable system to carry around. The battery life is excellent. So in that context, I'd say the OM1 is better. Um, but if that's not that critical, the XH2 is fine. Either one. I'm so sorry, I can't give you a more definitive answer. Either system is fine, but my challenge personally, you film, post processing is a non-issue. My problem with post processing is I want to use Photolab 7, and I'm not getting consistent results. That's where my challenge is. Uh, so don't let post processing be an issue if you don't mind using Capture One that comes with it. But if you want to use anything else, Lightroom or Photolab or anything else, really, post processing is it's going to take me some time to develop a workflow. I've seen some videos where people said they can use Lightroom to process Fujifilm and get good results. I need to watch those, but I've never once I've started using Photolab, I really don't like to use anything else. Oh wow, I've been on for quite a while. Sometimes I just want the freedom of having one camera, one lens, nothing to choose. Just take just take the photo and use my imagination. I'm far from this though. Yeah, I'm not actually. I can go out with just one camera and lens. Uh, no problem now. I Earlier on I had a hard time. Um, I wanted to bring everything, because I was said, what if I want to do this? What I want to do that? Now I'm in a place where I'm not greedy with my photography. When I go out, I'm going to go out for a very specific type of photography. Whether I'm going to shoot with this particular focal length, 25 millimeter, or I'm going to go do birds in flight. I'm going to bring out my 300 f4. Every time I go out, if I can easily go out with one camera and lens, um, and then have a purpose for that camera lens combination. So it's fine for me now. But early on, yeah, I had a hard time, man. I was like, I'm gonna bring my 40 to 150, I'm gonna bring my 25, my 17, my 12. I'm gonna bring my extension tubes, I'm gonna bring my flash and triggers, I'm gonna bring two different kinds of tripods, the tabletop, the tall one. Oh my God, I used to bring everything because and then I go out and I end up not using any of it, right? Or leaving half of it in the car and then wondering, oh, I should have brought this. Am I gonna miss out? I'll give you a good example. 2 days ago, I went out with the 9 millimeter lens. It's a 9 millimeter rectilinear, which I'm going to do a review on in the next couple days for full frame. 9 millimeter full frame lens. It is so wide. Oh my God, it's so wide. But uh, I went out and I'm doing these landscape shots, and a freaking eagle, bald eagle, landed in a tree right next to me, right freaking next to me. And I got my 9 millimeter wide angle lens on. I'm like, why? Why? I could almost touch the freaking eagle, with my hand. He was so close. And I was like, oh my God, if I had a longer lens, if I had my 300 millimeter right now, I could get a nice headshot portrait of a bald eagle. Oh, I was so upset. It's like, and then as I walk over to the marina, as a freaking red-shouldered hawk sitting on a tree with no branches, right? It's just one of these trees that are kind of a stick in the ground now, about 20 or 30 feet high. He was sitting there and it was sunrise, right? It was morning. So the light coming on these birds was freaking amazing. Had this beautiful orange glow. And again, 9 millimeter fisheye lens on me. I'm just like, seriously, God has a sense of humor. It's like, oh, Rob's going out with the 9 millimeter lens. Let's get some eagles and red shoulder, some hawks land right in front of him. Um, and he doesn't have his 300 millimeter lens. I probably could have used a 100 millimeter lens. Well, no, they were just far enough. Like a 150 would have done it, but the 300, I could have got a headshot of these birds. Like I would kill for a headshot. That's something on my bucket list. A nice headshot of a bird. Uh, Without cropping, like really get a headshot. And good morning, Kyle. Good to see you. Um, Brendan says, I very rarely post process. I try to do everything in camera. Yes. A lot of times, um, a lot of my post processing is very minimal. Just a slight tweak, highlight, shadow, or exposure, and then denoise and it goes out. Other times, I just get carried away and do HDR. But yeah, if you get it right in camera, the exposure and the composition, everything that you want correctly in camera, you don't really have to post process much usually. Just correct some vignetting maybe if you don't like that, or add it if you like it. That's about it. And Darko says, I'm going to do more black and white with high grain and high blur, but it is because it is art, not a portrait session that needs sharpness and bokeh. Yes. Be creative, man. Do whatever floats your boat. Um, like I said, I was playing around with old school HDR because I saw that's kind of neat, because I never really did it. But because by the time I got into photography, that phase had passed already, so I missed it completely. And John Truman says, lot to be said for straight out of camera. However, many of those that we look at to the grades were all manipulated their image. There'll always be that tension. Yeah. I mean, it's no secret if you've been studying photography for any length of time. Ansel Adams used to dodge and burn his images a lot, you know. Um, and then other images that you thought were sort of uh, natural and unaltered, turns out, everything was, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Staged, and then they took the photo. Um, so you have to do what you feel is right for you, right? To create the kind of image that you want to create and share. How you get there, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, offend as long as it doesn't affect anybody else, you do whatever works best for you, right? And that's the only line that I draw is when whatever my photography starts to affect someone else, uh, that's where I draw the line. Unless it's a positive impact, right? If they If they welcome it and want it, then yeah, I will work with them. But and that's why street photography is hard for me because I always feel like I'm intruding on someone's privacy or um, whatever. I've always been a little uncomfortable with that, and that vibe gets sent out to the people around you, right? The strangers around you, they sense that from you somehow, whether it's a little micro expression in your eyebrows, whatever, they sense that, and then they get nervous or uneasy about you taking their picture. And then there's people like Robin that just smile all the time, and people just they see him and they just, "Hey, take my picture. Come here. Hey, you with the camera, come over here, take my picture." You know? Because they want his energy, right? They want that energy to be feel good and feel happy. Robin is one of the happiest photographers on the planet, and if I saw him, I'd be like, "Hey, come over here and take my picture." I want some of that energy, that positive vibe. Anyhow, Gray Vanzini's here. Good to see you. We were freaked out with a light leak. Man, that shows how far behind I am on the chat. But yeah. Um, and Baybridge says, "Hello, Rob. Many thanks for the vast amount of guidance you have provided through your channel. You're welcome. Of course, I'm always happy to help. Is there any likelihood that you could explain video processing grading use of LUTs at some point?" There's very little chance of that because I don't do much of it. I shoot in program mode for video 90% of the time. Uh, for my professional work, which is just basically architectural type stuff where I'm just walking around the building, I do shoot in log. And then I just grade it slightly, add contrast and stuff. Very, very simple stuff. And this post-processing and grading and LUTs and all of that is going to be very dependent on the software that you use. If you're using Adobe Premiere or if you're using DaVinci Resolve like I do. Um, so you need to find tutorials online specific to the software that you're using, or maybe you just use CapCut. I don't know. Uh, but I am definitely the wrong person to ask for that kind of thing. My 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 post-processing video is extremely minimal in terms of the image quality itself, with the exception being when I have to do paid work, which is simply architectural type stuff, where I have to bring the highlights in and make sure there's no noise in the image, and I do it, but then it's yeah, I don't use LUTs at all, you know. Um, I'm just not the creative type in that sense. And let's see. We should understand our images as we are taking them. I would say understand why you're taking them, not necessarily understand the image that you're taking. Um, because you can take a picture of something that's kind of strange, says, I don't know what's going on here, but let me get a picture. Figure it out later, right? I mean, there's that, right? So, um, but yeah, try to understand why you're taking an image, I think. If I could expand on that just a little bit. And Robin Schaefer, good to see you. Darko, have you Um, oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was a question. Rob, you have never once been offensive. You're a very cool, smooth channel from the USA, and Robin and Marty as well as Peter. Yes, everyone is awesome in the community. And I feel privileged to have them as my colleagues and peers and friends online. I wish we could all meet in person because we would have such a good time, but uh, that's gonna have to wait for another time, maybe when I become big, maybe. Then I'll sponsor everybody to come here. And why did the chat section jump so far up? Good morning, Kyle. I think I've seen this. I'm going to do more black and white. Yep. Luminar Neo masking is very intuitive and easy. Um, my brain just could not get around how to use it. It wasn't intuitive for me, but my brain is a mess anyway. I haven't frozen. I'm very good at standing still because I do all these self-portraits and I just have to freeze, right? Um, the biggest issues with videos, they give you gas, yes. And then Darko says, will you try birds in flight with that and review the effectiveness of the AF? I might. I don't have a lens for it though. All I have is I have the 16 to 50 kit lens that came with my original Sony NEX camera, an APS-C. I bought the 55 because I like that focal length, right? The nifty 50 range. And uh, that's it. And then I got this 9 millimeter that somebody, that the manufacturer sent me that I'm testing out. But I don't have any long lenses. I was thinking about maybe renting the 200 to 600 and trying it out. Um, but I'm not the best person. It's just not me. I don't plan on using the Sony for birding or anything. I mean, I was thinking about you trying it and see, but I can't imagine any scenario where I would ever not use my OM1 because it's so small and lightweight, even with the 300 millimeter f4, to get the kind of reach and the pixel density that you get from the Micro Four Thirds sensor. And I can extract so much detail from my images. Um, because I edit sometimes. I help people with their images, and they're shooting Sony A7 IVs, not the. I haven't edited any Sony A1 images. Uh, but the 33 megapixel Sony A7 IV with the 200 to 600, I've edited images like that. And I'm not seeing any more detail or resolution in those images than I'm getting with my OM1. So I don't know. If it was my only camera system, obviously I would buy something like that. But the OM1 is so good. It's such a good camera for birding that I don't know if I'll even bother to rent a 200 to 600 other than for my own curiosity, right? Um, but I'm just not $100 curious yet because that's what it's going to cost to rent one of those. Um, but we'll see. I don't know. You never know. I might get a bug up my butt about it and try it. Uh, thank you, Robin. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I think I saw another super chat somewhere in here. I wish I could find it. I want to thank everyone that for the super chats and the coffees and the donations. I'm so grateful because they help me out so much. Um, and it not only validates what I do here, but it actually puts food on the table for me, for me and my dog. Because I survive off the little bits and pieces that I get from the YouTube advertising, the coffees, and the donations, and the few jobs that I get time to time. Because commercial real estate and architectural type photography, I don't get a lot of jobs. I get more in the spring and summer, but I haven't had a job now. If I go through December without a single photo job, that'll be 3 months without a real photo job. So all I've been doing is just living off the generosity of others through your coffees and donations and a little bit of so thank you so much. It helps me out a lot. It really does. Um, and I try to give back. I really try to give back and do my best for everyone. Um, and I'm just scrolling through here to see. And based on your okay, awesome. Yeah, we talked about the 12 to 100 last week. I don't see any reason not to get that lens. I mean, I think if I remember, you had every prime lens ever made, right? You had a lot, but you wanted kind of an all-in-one. That's the one to get, no question. And Druid's here. Good to see you. Um, and the G9 Mark II is expensive as the OM1. I was hoping, yeah, because they were like what? The original G9 was only 1,200 bucks or something, right? I can't remember. But they look, Jimmy just did a review on it, and it's always fascinating to see reviews on the same camera by different people, um, and what their opinions are, right? Because Emily did one, now Jimmy did one, and there's a bunch of other ones out there from others. Um, and I thought it was interesting. I thought Jimmy's was the most real with respect to or not real, but the one I can relate to the most because we're both Olympus shooters, right? And we love the OM system cameras. I can relate to his the most because Emily did a fantastic job on the reviews, but she's not a hardcore Olympus shooter like me. So I was able to relate to Jimmy, and that's why it's important to kind of watch if you're thinking about making a buying decision to watch everything and then try to come to a consensus of what the camera is or the gear, if it's good or bad. Try to come to a consensus if it's going to do what you want and if it's good or bad. And then look at the reviews that, focus on the reviews that you can relate to. Like I can relate a lot to what Jimmy's talking about in the video because we're both hardcore OM system users, and his perspective on the G9 I can relate to a lot. So his review is the best for me, right? Um, Emily over at Micro Four Nerds, if you're already a Panasonic shooter, her review probably makes more sense for you, right? And how she perceives the G9 II and looks at it, um, because reviews should be more than just a spec sheet, right? Of course, they got to go out and use the camera and try things out, but ultimately, their experience and how they use the camera and their impression of the camera is going to be based on their prior experience with other camera systems. And Jimmy's was probably the best for me. Uh, and I kind of ruled out the G9 already, the Mark II version, because it didn't offer anything that I can't do with the OM1 for the things that I would use the OM1, in this case, birding. It's already so good. I can't imagine it being, you know, even if it's 100% better, I can't imagine how that'd be possible because I'm already getting such good results out of the home. Anyway, um, I forget why I started talking about that. Somebody asked something about the G9 too. Oh, being expensive. Yeah, everything's expensive now. 2,000 bucks. That's pretty much the entry point to get a decent camera anymore. And then C Malk is asking, would you say the EM5 Mark II with the Lumix 20 millimeter could be pocketable? No, coat pocket, but not like jean pocket, skinny jeans. No, it's nowhere near like a GR. What is it? The Ricoh GR, whatever that series. It's nothing like that. But coat pocket, yeah, um, no question. I love the M5 Mark II. I added a grip to mine because I just like grips, so it's not pocketable at all. I could probably still put it in a coat pocket, but um, I rarely pocket my cameras. I just hang it on a strap and go out or have it on my bag. Thank you, Sosamin. I really appreciate that. That's very generous of you. Here's to having gas for the same Pen F. 25 millimeter lens. Yeah. Oh my God, that I need to go out with that. Take more pictures with this Leica. And even the 25-1.8 is an awesome lens. It has a flaring, ghosting kind of problem in direct sunlight, but for everything else, that lens is awesome. But this 25 Leica is awesome in every way, shape, and form. It's just magical to me. I don't know why, but it is. But thank you, Sosa, man. I appreciate it a lot. Uh, and the Great Vanzina says, I still fight with my Fuji kit. I don't know why. It just feels more like work instead of fun. Yeah, I'm a little bit past that now. I'm in that phase now with my Sony. I'm still fighting this camera a little bit, the menu system and the settings and the buttons. I'm getting there. I'm about 80% there on this. I'd say I'm about 95% on this. I actually enjoy shooting with this camera. So I'm about 95% there. Uh, my bigger problem is on the back end, post-production and that magic, right? I'm still missing that part. Um, and Basil is here. Good to see you. And the problem with those videos, those creators, is that they don't describe those videos as gas. They make their gripes seem like huge problems. Yeah. I think it's just an age thing, man. I mean, you know, I I gripe about the Fuji, but it's not like a deal breaker or killing me, or I don't lose sleep over the problems that I've been running into because I know I'll get past them eventually. You know what I mean? The problem is not the camera, it's me, right? Uh, but I get it. Some people, they want everything to be 100% out the gate, and that's just not the case. You have to work at your craft. You have to work at getting familiar with the quirks of your camera and gear and lenses and everything and really get to know it. I mean, like the 25 millimeter f1.8, I know what's going to happen when I point it at the sun, so I try to take advantage of that and use the flaring and glaring in the image, or I have to deal with it in post processing, but I know it's going to happen, you know. Um, so you have to know your lens, like this Zeiss. I feel like it has a slight field curvature in the focus. It doesn't matter 99.999% of the time. But as I'm shooting with this lens, I'm starting to see some slight field curvature. Uh, and once I know it's there, then I need to learn how to take advantage of it or work around it, right? Stop the lens down. I think f2, I don't see it at all. But at f1.8, I'm like, why is this out of focus? This should be in focus in the corner, right? Or this, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure about that yet. But you need to learn the quirks of your because there's sample variation in lenses in particular. Um, there's certain things that you see that no one else will see that will bother you. Um, and some things are deal breakers for some people and some things aren't, but none of these cameras are deal breakers. They don't have any deal breakers for me. They're all fabulous cameras, and the problem is more on my end, right? And Jeff Painter, good to see you. And there looks like a question here. Uh, does Photolab 7 support? No, it does not. Let me read it out loud. Does Photolab 7 support panorama creation using multiple photos? It does not. Photolab doesn't have any panorama, HDR, or stacking. It's lacking like any kind of layering capability or stitching. So That's not where its power is, right? Its power is in the post-processing and noise reduction and sharpness and all of that, obviously, which if you're using Photolab 7, you know that if for me, it gives the very, very best results when you're processing an image. But yeah, these other things you have to supplement either with Photoshop or Huggin or Picolay or whatever alternative software. Affinity Photo, I think, has all of those things and it's pretty reasonable. It might even be on sale right now. But Affinity Photo is pretty affordable and has all of those things, and it may be your only software you need, and you don't need PhotoLab 7. But I've tried all of them, and I've not found anything that that I've been able to get better results from than PhotoLab 7. That's not to say that you can't get better results from other software. Because just like your cameras and lenses and gears, software on your computer, you have to understand its nuances and how it works best and what settings work best to give you the very best results. And for me, Photolab 7, just everything clicked, the workflow, um, and the settings and everything that I use for me to be able to get an image, the best quality image that I'm happy with from it. Photolab 7's worked for me the best, and I don't think anyone else, but that thank God for 30-day trials, right? If you work with Photolab 7 after 30 days and it's not working for you, your brain, you can't wrap your brain around how it does things, or you can't get an image out, then don't get it, right? It's that's why we have these 30-day trials. And I tried AC/DC, I tried On One, I tried Topaz, I tried Affinity. Um, Affinity is awesome though. It doesn't post the post-processing is not as good as, in my opinion, as Photolab 7, but it does have all of these things, right? Stitching, stacking, panorama, HDR, it has all of that stuff. It has noise reduction to an extent, not as good, but I think Affinity might be a good supplement to Photolab if you don't want to buy into like the Adobe side. And Marcia says, I used to take two cameras and several lenses. Now I take one camera and one lens when I walk. Yeah, I know, right? And you can take as many cameras and lenses as you want, right? Whoever, whatever makes you happy. But um, I don't know. I'm content with one camera and one lens a lot of times, and I go out with a purpose. It's just my brain. I enjoy the photography experience more, but for some people, if they don't bring like everything they need or think they're gonna need, they're gonna stress out by not having it when they go in the field, right? Um, I get that. And then Adams kind of concurs. It takes some time to pick the camera that works for you and just go out and shoot. It includes what you use in post-processing. Yep. So it's a whole process now, right? Digital photography is, in camera and then in post-processing. And assistant in their choices, I use the Panasonic G9 for street, the OM1 for nature and wildlife, and some video, and the Sony for nature, wildlife, and video with the appropriate lens. Yeah, man, I'm so jealous. If you probably got the 600 f4, right, from Sony. Like, yeah, that's got to be an amazing combination, like the A1 with the 600 f4. You know, if you got the beans for that, you're probably you're in a very happy place, right? And let's see. And the Eagle story is exactly why I have my camera as default. Have the 18 to 135 APS-C on my camera as default, and then I switch different lenses. But this one is always with me, unless I have some 17 to 50. Yeah. Um, yeah. When I went out because I have to review this lens. It's right here behind me. Uh, so I just brought it so I could concentrate on that and not. But then what? It's like I could go out on a photo walk every day for a month and not see a bald eagle or a red-shouldered hawk. And then I'm just going out on some random day without that lens, and I see both on the same day within like 15 minutes of each other. And at that point, I just anyway, life is hilarious. That's all I can say. Life is hilarious. My macaws. Oh yeah, macaws. Those are parrots or something, aren't they? We used to have a parrot in our family, but he passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately. That parrot used to always say my name when I walked in. So, they go, "Hey Rob, hey Rob." It's weird. Those animals, they know. Uh, they're smart. Parrots are very smart. I know that. And for street, shoot from the hip and use a flip screen. I've tried that, and I've also tried like just using the phone app to take pictures and stuff. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to do some street photography again soon. It's too cold now though. I I'll bundle up for bird photography because I love it so much, but I ain't bundling up to go out and do street photos. That's gonna have to wait till spring or summer. And there you are. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate because I know you've done this over and over again in previous streams throughout the years. I really appreciate your support. The great Vanzini, you're awesome. Thank you so much. Um, so I never photograph homeless or children in my hometown. People really take offense to photogs doing that. You need to be aware of the social. Yeah. So yeah, there's a certain etiquette, and that's going to change from location to location, country to country, city to city. Uh, when you're doing photography, and doesn't have to be necessarily street photography. It could be nature photography. There's a certain etiquette to when you do photography. Like when I'm doing my wildlife photography, and I see a bird, I don't run over there, right? To take their picture because I'm going to make a lot of noise and ruin chances for other photographers to get that shot because it might take the bird to fly off and I experienced this yesterday. I learned something new is at this particular park, you stay in your car and drive around and take pictures. And there was a bird, and I made the mistake of pulling all the way up next to the bird, and then it flew away. So what we need to do next time is just if we see the bird, just get close enough to where it's not too far of a walk, and then slowly approach the bird away from the car. Because just closing the car doors makes enough noise for them to kind of scatter off. So little things you kind of learn etiquette and manners and all of that stuff. But yeah, be very aware of the etiquette of wherever you're going to be shooting, no matter what it is, street, nature, etc. Um, and thank you, Marcia. My gosh, I really appreciate that. Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you so much. Um, and Roger says, have you thought about doing more interviews of famous digital photographers? I think you may have had a few in the past, maybe some famous landscape. I don't know if I've had anybody famous. I've had some very good guests, including Robin, who may still be here. I've had many very good guests, but I don't know anybody famous. I do want to do some more live streams though with guests, rather than just me jibber jabbering for 2 hours. And oh, thank you, Robin. There's 86 people watching and only 45 likes. Yeah. The likes, I guess they help other people see the video. I don't know how the algorithm works, but for me, when I see likes, it tells me that, it validates what I'm doing. Um, for everyone, that I'm not just wasting my breath, right? That I'm trying to provide some value to the photographic community, um, best I can anyway. And the 200 to 600 lens is great, but rather on the heavy side. I've heard that, yeah. I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't handled it myself. But the person that has one, she's a very small person, right? She has to use a gimbal with that lens. She can't handhold it for more than 30 minutes. Um, oh, Bay Bridge, you're gonna get your OM1. Awesome. Congrats. Man, the OM1 is such a great camera. I tell you. Um, yes, we all have this, right? Gas. Some people are better at managing it than others. Some people claim they don't have it. But I will not deny it. I have gas so bad. Um, it's a little tempered because things are so frickin' expensive. But let me tell you, the Olympus 150 to 400, right, is 7,500. If someone said I could get it right now for $4,000, I would figure out a way to get it because I can't. I want that lens, but I can't afford that kind of money. But then if it's a really good deal and I want it, oh my God, I will figure out a way, right? Just like in that movie Jurassic Park. Yeah, Jurassic Park, right? Life will find a way. That 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 sticks. That phrase is sticking with. Um, but even with no accountability except to myself, I would have a hard time. So man, I went to the local camera store. They had the 25 2.8 in stock, and I ran into one of my viewers. She walked up and says, "Rob, I watch you on YouTube." I said, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you, right?" But they were also shopping for that lens. We both went there for the same lens, and I let her take it. I said, "Oh, you take it. I'll buy another one later when it comes up again." But um, yeah, I wanted that lens, but we were just we were just there at the same time, and I just let her get it. Uh, I shouldn't say I let her get it. I was there first, I think, though. But she wanted that lens too, and I wasn't gonna fight over it. And this one, just take now the OM1 cameras, 90 macro, 150 to 4. Oh, you have the 150 to 400, and the 40 to 150 covers everything I'm likely to encounter. Yes, I would imagine. At Rob Trek, the 600 millimeter Sony lens is far too expensive and too big, so I would never think about buying it. I often buy used equipment. Okay, yeah, it's pricey, man. It's like 12,000 or something, isn't it? And Peter Hurley, new subscribers, has just bought the OM1 and kit lens and the 100 400 for Christmas. Looking forward to getting out with it. Awesome. Congratulations. That's an awesome setup you got there. Um, Peter Hurley. I wonder if it's the one and the same with the portrait photographer uh by the same name, if not the same person in this case. Oh, so you did buy the 600 f4 for the Sony. I think that's what you're saying. Still. Still, that's huge, man. It's like such a big lens. But I know, whoever's in that system is very happy. A1 with a 600 f4 and a gimbal and a tripod. Man, you need all that stuff. Walter is here. Hey, Walter, how's it going? Man, you're coming in right at the end here because I really do want to kind of wrap it up. Play guitar and you have double gas. I do play. It's been 10 years since I picked up my guitar. I don't know if I'd even remember how to play C. Um, in terms of value for money, no, there's nothing competes with the OM1. I would, if anybody knows, you would know, right? Because you have it all. Or you have two very competitive systems there, an A1 and an OM1, right? So that I would give your statement a lot of credibility, um, and would concur if I owned an A1, but I don't. But from everything I can see, uh, the OM1 for birding is amazing. If you're a portrait photographer, I think EM1 Mark III, like portraits and events and things, EM1 Mark II, EM1 Mark III, kind of like Robin shoots with, you're fine, but uh birding, man, I can't think of another system right now that at this price point is even close. Maybe the G9 Mark II now, maybe. Okay, so we'll call that a tie. But that's a very recent addition, right? Wow, another 150 to 400 user. Wow. And the R5 is your backup. I ran into somebody who takes amazing images and they had the exact same setup. They had the OM1, the 150 to 400, and they had the R5 as a backup. They switch, I wouldn't say they switch, but the R5 is not their primary birding camera. Uh, they used the OM1 and they had the R5 with all the, full on gear. The guy's a doctor, so he has some disposable income. Being a doctor doesn't mean you have disposable income, so don't let that. I shouldn't make that statement. But apparently, this person had some disposable income, right? And they're using OM1 also. And then Walters, the price point is the key in OM1 system value. You can get better performing system, but you pay significantly more. That is so true, right? Um, just on paper, right? On paper, you can see what a value the OM system is for birding and wildlife. But as you can see from the feedback I'm seeing here in the chat section, it is extremely competitive at any price point. R5, A1, you know. Um, Guarantee there's compromises, right? You can't go from a $2,000 camera to a $6,000 camera and not have compromises. But yeah, that's a pretty big gap. You have to spend a lot more, I guess, and that's true for everything, right? You could get a Miata for 20 or 30,000, or you can get a Ferrari, you know. It's like you probably have just as much fun in either one, but anyway, enough of those dumb analogies. Gotta go. It's a great stream. Thank you, Plato. Good to see you here. Great to see everyone on my Flickr page and checking that out and my Instagram. Definitely check those out. Like I said, take everything I post there. Don't take anything I post on my Instagram, my community page, my Flickr page too seriously. I'm just sharing what I like to shoot, and if I do any comparisons, um, again, take all of that with a grain of salt because there's so many variables, even in a studio scene. When I take a picture to compare cameras, uh, it's from my point of view, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with any of the other systems. It just I'm just struggling to find that magic. like so many others have found in the Fujifilm system. It just hasn't happened for me yet, but I think I'll get there eventually. Because I really do like shooting with it. I just can't. I just haven't got that magic yet, like I got with this 25 millimeter Leica or this 55 millimeter Zeiss on this Sony. This to me is so magical. I love going out and shooting with this, or the Pen F with 38. Anyway, I'm just repeating myself, so it must be time to end the stream. So everyone, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking time to spend with me today. It's always a pleasure to see everyone, and I will try and do another one next week, and I'm going to do some photo editing streams. So look for that this week. Probably Tuesday I'll do one, so I'll post something today after I eat lunch because I'm really hungry now too. Um, and thank you everyone for your support with the likes and comments and super chats and coffees and donations. They are greatly appreciated. However, you can contribute, uh, with likes and subscribes and super chats, whatever it is greatly appreciated. Or just being here, I really appreciate it. Um, and it just makes my day when I see everyone here participating and being part of the community or photographic community. And I really look forward to seeing everyone again next week. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you again soon.